The boundary of lives is not closed system or isolated system. The boundary made by this lipid structure does not allow the full entry or exit of material, but they allow partially the import of material and also export of those materials. And then they form and accumulate the biologically relevant materials inside the life forms. So that's why we call this kind of material as biomaterials. Not only the biomaterials, which are mainly organic molecules composed of carbon, there are a lot of different ion concentration difference between in and out of the cells. So first of all, if you look at the sodium concentration, outside of the cell, they have almost more than 10 times of sodium, and potassium is the opposite. And inside is much higher than outside of the cell. Very interestingly, the total amount of a sum of sodium and potassium, they are similar. So that means this high concentration of the sodium and potassium, the ions, they provide osmotic pressure balance. And if you look at the magnesium not very much different, but inside is a little smaller than outside. But calcium concentration is dramatically different. Inside of a cell is comparing to outside of a cell, the amount of calcium is 1 of thousands. So this is intentionally, you can think the cell exported the calcium and keeping the environment of inside the cell as a much lower concentration of calcium. And chloride is counter-anion of sodium or potassium. They have a similar concentration to sodium. So outside is 10 times higher than inside. If you compare this intracellular and also extracellular concentration of ions, you may recall this concentration balance, especially the extracellular concentrations, they are very similar to seawater. So this extracellular concentration, a little diluted, maybe about twofold or threefold diluted the concentration, but the composition ratio is very similar to seawater. This implies that the environment of life, when they started from the sea. And even the life forms living on solid earth right now, they started their original form of life from the sea and they migrated to the solid area. The active transporting of some materials into the cell and also exporting out some unnecessary or waste material to the outside of the cell, eventually it generates the accumulation of biomaterials inside the cell and also the odor. So odor implies that not only the accumulated the materials, they are very well organized and very well maintained and regulated. To keep the order, the cells or the life forms, they require energy. And maintaining order means reducing entropy is not free. We need to put external energy from environment into the life forms, means inside the cell. And the fundamental source of this energy, at least for our planet, is provided by sun in the form of sunlight. Sun provides the energy, and then the life forms utilize this sunlight as the energy source, and then they do amazing chemistry. Utilizing the very simple carbonated molecule, the carbon dioxide, and also water as the material, and they form very complex organic material, and starting from glucose as the primary product of these reactions. And this reaction and this synthesis is catalyzed by the sunlight. So that's why this the synthesis is called as photosynthesis. The first product of photosynthesis is glucose. But you may heard that the main composition materials of our body as proteins or lipids, and glucose is a kind of carbohydrate. So starting from glucose, it can be converted into different materials to build proteins and also lipid molecules. We already have seen the lipid molecules in terms of fatty acid, which compose the membrane structure of the cells. And eventually, they form genetic material such as nucleic acids. Utilizing this kind of old biomaterials and highly ordered structure, now this is kind of the structure of modern cells. The modern cells, they are composed of plasma membrane, so-called cellular membrane, and inside this cell, there are small structures of the organelles, including nucleus, ER, Golgi body, and lysosome and mitochondria.